Joey. Thank you so much for being here on the Scrunch Creator Economy Show. I'm so happy to have you and chat with you.
My pleasure. I'm super honored to be joining you to, get into this talk. Thanks so much for reaching out to me to have a conversation together.
Amazing. Well, I always like to start with just sharing your story. So I know, hockey played a massive part in your journey, but I'd love to know kind of how you got there. Like, tell me the backstory.
Okay, so I'm 28 today, so I'll go back in time more than a couple of years. So,
Amazing.
so I was an athlete all my life, specifically playing ice hockey here in Canada. Um, and I had quite the journey. I stopped playing when I was about 19 years old, so approximately like 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And growing up, especially with my hockey career, social life, and everything, I was always known as the smallest kid around. I was way behind my years physically.
Mm-hmm.
So that played a massive disadvantage and a big like adversity. Uh, there was a big adversity obstacle pretty
Mm,
much every single year
yeah.
as I got older and as I wanted to play at a better level in hockey.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so uh, it's hard to go back 10 years time or
Yeah.
more, but I'll try to sum it up the best I can so that no one gets lost and so that you don't get lost either. But um, uh, there was a very big shift when I was 15 years old because that's when I started working out, and that's when things got very serious with my hockey career
Mm-hmm.
at a very young age. There was there was a lot of adversity, and just looking back today, those years um, helped a lot for who I am today, and all in my 20s up to this point, they were
Mm,
very helpful. So to answer your question, when I was 15, um, I had um, I had moved to a city here in Canada in the suburbs of Montreal, north of Montreal. And at 15 here in Canada, you're in grade 11. So I'm not
okay.
too sure and familiar how it is where you live, but it's high school, it's grade 11, it's your last year of high
Mm,
school. That's where you graduate and everything. And then after you graduate grade 11, then you have a couple of years of what they call like college here.
gotcha.
It's kind of like a pre-university or university, depending on what program you go for or what you shoot for. So when we had March break, which is like spring break here, um, I was very I was looking at what my options were for the following year in
Mm,
terms of what was going to be my path for hockey, what was going to be my path for school. And at that time, I saw a lot of people in my entourage, going that I went to school with or that I was going to school with, applying for all these colleges, and they had kind of like a plan. And my plan, I knew in my mind that hockey for me was number one before anything. I had
mm,
to set my mind, put all of my eggs and energy in one basket and really strive for what I really wanted to accomplish, which was to play professionally. And so during spring break, I had to look at my options. And it's very difficult here in my province of Quebec, which is a province or a state or whatever in the country of Canada. It's very difficult to find a school and hockey that are kind of linked together.
mm-hmm.
Everything is always separate, so it's kind of like you either go all in on school or go all in on like hockey. So it's very hard
Right.
to do both at the same time if you want to um, keep a good
Like
level on both.
balance. Mm,
Yeah, balance on both. So during that spring break, I reached out to a team that I wanted to try out for, which was the best team and the best place that you could go to play at 15 years old. So all the best 15-year-olds in this region that I was living at, I wanted to try out for that team. And I was new in this area, so no one really knew who I was. I didn't have any friends in that area, and I was very small. So it was maybe a month before my 16th birthday, or let's just say 15 years old, 15, 16.
Mm.
I was not even 5 feet 1 inches tall, not even 100 pounds. I don't know if you work in kilos, but it's not a
Not
lot.
good,
It's
but
not
that's
even like
okay. Yeah.
50 kilos or yeah, it's really not a lot. So I was way behind my years again, like I said before, physically. And so I reached out to the manager of this team, and he got back to me. I remember still to this day, it was an email saying like the first sentence was, what are your stats? Meaning how tall are you? What's your weight? And I kind of lied. And so I got an invite to those tryouts. Um, and I remember showing up to that weekend of tryouts. I walked into the dressing room, and I didn't know no one. And I walked into that dressing room, and I still remember the feeling. My heart dropped.
Mm.
I looked around, and everybody was like double my size. They all looked at me like, "Who is this new person?" And I remember during that first practice, after it finished, I couldn't even breathe. I thought I had asthma. It was like I had so much anxiety. I
Mm.
remember stepping out of that arena and leaving, looking at my mom and being like, I was crying. I said, I'm not coming back to this.
Wow.
I wanted to give up everything. Fast forward, that's where I went to the next day. I remember I went with my mom in the car. We saw a gym, and I was like, "Can I go work out? Can we get a membership up at this gym?" And the rest is history. That's where it really started.
Wow.
I was so serious about just gaining size, improving my on ice performance. Um, and then again, I was left with no team, no school, no team. I remember I wrote down an email, and every team that I could find in North America for my age group, literally every single province and state, there was about over 1,000 emails that I sent out,
Wow.
asking if I could go try out. And they always fell back on how big I was and where did I play.
Mm.
Um, and I remember finding this one school that was in a different province, a province of Ontario and Ottawa. Um, I had reached out to this school. It's a school that's just for hockey players.
Mhm.
So everything was on campus. It was a newly built school and everything. I reached out to that school and asked if I could get a tryout, or if I could get a chance. Um, and then I remember getting an email back, but like a lot of boarding schools or prep schools, as they call it in North America or United States, it's very expensive. It could be
Mm.
from $30,000, 40,000, all the way up to maybe $60,000,
Wow.
depending on the school. And obviously, my family didn't have that money. My dad was very sick, and I remember just going to visit that school here in Ottawa, and again, my size came into play. And I remember the president of the school saying, "This is not the place for you. You're gonna have to look somewhere else." And I was so gutted inside,
Mm.
but in my mind, I was like, "There's something about the school. It's there's something about it." And a week later, that president sent me an email saying, you know, "We might have an opening for you. Maybe just write up a letter to see if you could get donations to attend this school." It was $35,000 for an out of
Wow.
province student, which was the fee that I needed to pay for my parents.
Mm.
We didn't have that money, so I wrote up a letter in English and French, and I still have it. I have it framed. Um,
Awesome.
I wrote on one side, it was an English version. On the other side, it was a French version. I speak both languages, so I had that in my hand, and I also had it in an email format, and I sent it to. I have a binder still with every single company, every single person that I was able to reach out to,
Mm.
from like McDonald's to BlackBerry, the telephones, to professional hockey players here where I live, like literally so many people and
Mm.
companies. And the only donation that I got in like over the summer of that year was only $20 from a corner store 5 minutes from my house. I
Oh
didn't get
no.
nothing.
Oh,
And September is usually the month when school starts, and usually when the hockey season here starts. And
mm,
September was quickly approaching, and I only had $20 and $20 in my piggy bank.
wow.
I didn't know what to do. So I reached out to the president of that school again. I said, look, I only have $20. And fast forward a bit, um, it was the school started, the hockey season started. I had nothing. I wasn't in school. I wasn't playing hockey. I didn't know what to do. Um, and there was a date that came to mind 3 weeks after school started there. That team was leaving for a showcase, which is like a tournament with a lot of scouts in the United States. They were going to Detroit, Michigan. And in my head, I was like, if I'm not on that bus somehow, forget it. Like, it's literally all over, because the team is going to connect. There's people from
Mm,
all around the world that are attending this school, from Europe, from Australia, from pretty much everywhere, that are joining this school. And I was like, if I'm not on that bus, forget it. The team is going to be connected, welded together. They're going to have a great bond. I'm not going to be part of it again. I just felt out. So my goal was to get on that bus no matter what, and then figure out the rest later. I got on that bus. Um, I played that show. I played at that showcase
how
in
did you
Detroit,
get on this
Michigan.
bus? How did you do this?
um,
I'm so invested. I need to know.
uh, my mom helped a lot through this process. We
Mm,
were, I remember just rewinding a bit. I remember being in school, and out of nowhere, I hear on the intercom that my mom is there to pick me up from school, and I was like, "What's going on?" So I got, I took my stuff, I got in the car, she picked me up, she said, let's go. Um, we're going to go give your letter in hand to all these professional hockey players that'll be coming out of their practice facility. So we waited in the rain
wow.
for about 3 hours until each player, each manager, every agent that was coming out of the garage, the parking lot, we gave it in their hands, each one of them. And again, I only got $20 from the corner store, which I find was very it still gets to me to this day, because yeah, that's a whole different story. But I only got $20. And how I got on that bus is I messaged the president. I was like, look, I only got $20. Can we figure something else later? I really need to get on this bus. He called me back 2 days later. He called us back, my mom and I, and he said, come on over, um, come to Detroit, and then we'll figure out the rest later. So I got on it. I took all my
Wow.
stuff. I packed my suitcase. Um, and actually, he said, if when we come back from the Detroit tournament, uh, you know, if it doesn't work out, you can just head on back home. And, my mom and I were like, if I'm gonna get on this bus, it's to stay for good. It
Yeah.
doesn't make sense to go, being a 15-year-old kid, bringing this kid over from a different province at such a young age with, all this happening in the background. Um, if I'm to go, I'm not coming back. I'm
Yeah.
there to stay. And he, I guess, realized that. He realized what he said, and he said, Just come, on the bus, and we'll see where this takes us." So I got on that bus, played that tournament, which was so crazy because everything happened in such a quick. It happened in like 2 days, all of this, and I had to get a passport also to travel to a different
Wow.
country because I didn't have anything. So I wrote up a letter to the customs office, and I was able to get a passport within like 24 hours to hop on this bus to go to a different country in Detroit, in the US.
Oh my God.
Um, and fast forward again, it's a very long story, so I'm trying to just compress it all so you could understand it also. Um, September went, October went by, November went by, and then December, I was still at this campus. I was living there. I had my dorm. My roommate was from Switzerland. I was playing on this team. It was amazing. And about like 2 weeks before Christmas break, I didn't know this, but my mom got a phone call from the finance department, and the finance department saw that we only paid like $20, or actually we didn't pay anything. And the finance department, the head of finance, called my mom and said, we're approaching a new year, Christmas break, the holidays. Do you expect to pay anything soon? And my mom, I didn't know this, but my mom kind of was on the spot, and she was like, look, I have a credit card that has a $5,000 limit on it. I'll max out that credit card for my son. I didn't know this.
Wow.
And then I'll pay for the rest of, my mom was like, I'll pay for the rest of my life if I need to, but my son needs to stay there for the rest of the year.
Mm.
I didn't know this. So she was coming to pick me up for the Christmas break so I could go back home for the holidays. And I'm getting goosebumps because what I'm about to tell you, and maybe a couple days later, after she got that phone call from the finance department, the president of the school, I'm not going to use his name, but the president of that school called my mom and gave her the news that, or gave her some good news that I didn't know of. And so holidays were approaching, so my mom came to pick me up. She was on campus, and I needed to pack everything to leave for a couple weeks for the holidays. And I remember grabbing everything that I had. I had 2 suitcases. I was rolling them out of my dorm room, and it's a long, long hallway. And when I look to my right, all I see at the end of the hallway, it was a straight hallway. All I see at the end is the president of the school and campus and everything. He was on my right, and just coincidentally, my mom was on the left entering the dorm building.
It's like
And
a
there was no one
movie.
really else in the building.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was stepping out of my dorm room. I was closing the door. I see my mom on the left. I see the president of the school on the right. And then we just all came in together. And the president of the school looks at my mom, and I'm in the middle, and he says, "Did you tell him?" And then I'm looking, I'm like, "Oh my God, I probably got scouted for like a professional team." I was like, there's a scout that probably saw me play during these last few months. I was freaking out. I was like, "Oh my God, what is it?" And she looked at him and she's like, "No, I didn't tell him." And then I was like, "Okay, what is it?" So he looks at me and he's like, "It's to tell you that there's an angel that came from the sky and dropped a check of $25,000 in your name on my desk this morning, or before the holidays."
What?
And as soon as I heard that news, there was like a huge weight that lifted off my shoulders.
Mm.
And I was like, it worked. It
Yeah.
actually worked, because every single day for almost like a year, I was on my computer. I remember it was like 40 degrees outside. I had a fan on my desk just pointing towards me, sending out these emails, trying to get donations, bringing it to companies. Um, and yeah, there was an angel that dropped a check of $25,000 in my name, and I obviously got a scholarship for the remainder. They waived the fee, and the balance of that year was $0. I spent the whole year at that school.
Wow.
Um, I graduated from there. I got awards from that school, and um, it was just like a small victory. I was like, I knew it worked because I didn't give up. I had no plan B. And while that whole year, a lot of people were telling me to have a plan B, I was like, no, I can't send a plan B because it's going to take away from my plan A of what I really want.
Mm.
And it worked. It really worked. And then yeah, that year, honestly, up to this day, set a solid foundation.
Mm.
I acquired so many tools, and it's something so significant in my life up to this point and will always be. And it taught me at a young age, battling like just anxiety and dealing with like full of things just physically, and having so much adversity growing up. Also with that, um, was a huge victory.
Oh, I can
And
only imagine that setting your mind to something at, 15, 16 years old, and committing to it every day for a year and then having it finally pay off, like that's incredible. That's like, okay, I can actually
Literally
do
pay off.
anything. I can do anything I want in my whole life.
100%. And up to this day, I still keep that mentality,
Mm,
that structure, that formula that I used.
yep.
I always refer back to that because it was so difficult day in
Mm,
and day out. I didn't go out with friends. I didn't even go to my graduation,
mm,
that grade 11 at that year. Nothing like there was so many days that I was crying, like in my backyard, in my room.
mm,
I didn't know what to do. Everybody kept saying no. I only got $20 and I
mm,
sent it to over like 1,000 companies and people and
mm,
like companies, you know, with that could easily, well, I'm not
mm,
saying easily, but that have probably um the ways to
mm,
donate or things
mm.
like that or programs, but I only got $20 and it was like from a hot dog and hamburger corner store in my city.
Wow.
Um and yeah, I
Did
went
you
on
ever
to
find
play that
out
whole year.
did you ever find out who this angel was?
I did. They reached out through email years later, and
Cool.
I'm still in contact with them to this day.
Wow.
And they're they are close but far in distance,
Mm,
mentors for me.
cool.
And yeah, it was amazing also to find out who and everything. That was such a it was so emotional, and it was years later that I found out. But on that spot, like the feeling, the just everything in one was crazy. And also how it happened, how my mom was there without,
Mm,
calling the president of the school and matching it because he was
mm,
checking each room to see if the kids were gone. It was crazy. And I took advantage of that year. We had access to, gym. We had access to all the food we wanted. It was the best level of hockey I could play at that age. I met so many great people from around the world. It was such an experience at such a young age. It's almost like a little like dream that little kids, that's young kids dream of doing. You're living with your hockey team, your friends. They're right across my door. I can knock on their door. They're living there. It was a cool experience that I'll cherish forever. And that was just the beginning. That I graduated from there my grade 12 year.
mhm.
um, I graduated from there with awards and everything, and I ended up playing on the first line of my hockey team um, throughout the second half of that year, which was a huge milestone for me and a huge achievement. Um, and then I went on to sign with a team in the United States, in
Amazing.
New York State, and um, and then that just didn't work out. There was things that didn't fall into place correctly once I signed with that team, and I was very in shape through those years, and I just decided to get active on social media,
Mhm.
share everything about kind of I was doing at that point, and slowly built a following and slowly built a coaching business through what I had, because it was kind of after everything dropped once I signed with that team, after it didn't work out, I was kind of back to where I was in terms of no hockey, no school, but a year later. Um, and so I was like, what do I have right now that I could use to my advantage? And it
Yes.
was, the whole fitness aspect of it all. And so I did. And that's where the whole social media kind of game started, like 10,
Yeah, well,
11
I
years
mean,
ago.
yeah, I was going to ask. So you've got 115,000 followers now, which is massive. And obviously you're sponsored, you have your own business, you do the coaching. Like the leap from, oh my God, I want to be a professional hockey player, and going through that adversity, having those successes, and then it not working out, and then going, oh my God, I've got to change. I've got to, reinvent myself. But I love
Yeah.
how you went, well, what tools do I have now at my disposal, and how can I use them to build a business? So talk to me about that. So obviously you started a decade ago on social media,
Yep.
which is right when everything was starting. Yeah, tell me about that process and how it's grown.
Yep. So yeah, like you said, I like the tools that I had in my tool bag that I was able to
Mm.
use at that moment to my advantage was the whole fitness aspect. I was so above a lot of people. It's so weird because between like 15 and like 17, I took a huge leap in terms of like the whole physical performance and
Mm.
just everything in terms of fitness. There was always like fitness testings with hockey teams and everything, and I funny enough, I always finished in like first with the tryouts of those teams in the hockey testing, the hockey fitness testing, and which was crazy because coming from this small kid that it was always the reverse thing.
Mm.
It slowly built up to being that, and um, that same year when I started to get active on social media and post fitness related stuff, about a year later, I decided to do a physique competition, and in that same year I did 4 competitions and ended up winning my pro card as a physique competitor
Wow.
in the year when I was 18 or 19.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe a year or 2 years later, I ended up winning a pro card, which again was so, I'll use the word funny, because I went, all my high school year, my
Mm.
school years, my hockey years too, growing up, it was always a question of like physique, how big I was, how tall I was, how much did I weigh. And then a couple of years later, I ended up being on stage as a physique competitor because I
Wow.
just wanted to try something like that. I
Mm.
had it in my tool bag. I wanted to try it out, and it went very well. And during that time, like simultaneously as I was working out and competing and all that, there was a lot of people reaching out to me, being like, "Oh, can you help me? I want to attain this. I want to achieve this physically." And I was like, "Whoa, these are the same people that I played hockey with. These are the same people that I went to school with, asking
Wow.
me questions or coming back to me for like fitness help," which
Mm.
was completely insane to me. I was realizing this. I was like, "Whoa, this is so crazy."
Mm.
Um, and so that's where it kind of started, and um I just got active on social media. And I was always, when I was like, even before 15 years old, I always had a geeky side to
Mm.
me. I loved gaming. I loved everything that had to do with like Photoshop, editing videos. I remember posting my first YouTube video in 2006 or 8,
Wow.
way before anything started, and I still have those videos, I think, up or something. And I that helped me for when I actually started social media, because I knew already how to edit videos,
Yeah.
how to edit like pictures, how to retouch pictures, and yeah, and that's where it all started. I started my coaching business, and then I started to taste a bit of the world of e-commerce in terms of clothing brands that I
Mhm.
started, and I ended up working with a lot of companies as like a model or sponsors throughout the years. And it goes by fast. Time goes by fast just talking about this, because
Yeah.
that's already like 8, 10 years ago, which is
Wow.
again crazy.
And so what do you find? Because I often have creators who, um, have built these massive followings, and they're kind of relying on sponsored posts or like ambassadorships from brands. But I know you do that, but you also have your own business as well. Like, what do you think about that? Do you think as a creator, it's important to have something that you own, that your business asset, so that you don't have to always rely on kind of brand deals?
100%,
Mm.
100%, because it could be, it's good to have both, and
Mm.
it's good to not shut off both. But it's very good to have something in your name because you're in control of it. You don't know
Yeah.
what all those other companies or people it's not sustainable, it's not long term, so to speak.
Mm,
But in terms of having your own as a creator, it'll stay a lot, it'll stay rolling as long as you're alive. And if it gets to a certain point, obviously you could structure it a certain way as to, if you're not present physically and not there, it could still roll too. But it's very good to have both, because
mm,
you can't create everything. You can't create everything in every single domain. And I
mm.
don't think that's the right thing also. Even if you have a massive following, sure, you have a lot of eyeballs and a lot of attention, but I prefer to just kind of focus on a couple things, and leave all those sponsorship deals and contracts and ambassador programs to other things, because also I don't have to stress about all those other brands. I just need to focus on my task,
Mm.
deliver with the contract and agreement that I have with that company or brand, and that's all I need to do. So it's good to have both. It's
Yeah.
always good to never close off one opportunity or the other, and it's just, yeah, it's very good to have both. And I think, yes, it is important to have something in your own name,
Yeah, absolutely.
and
And
it's
what
also fun.
Yeah, totally. Well, I mean, like running your own business is kind of hard. So, I imagine that, it's an opportunity to learn more skills, right? Like it's an opportunity to grow again, going into like a business arena.
Yes, exactly. um
Yeah.
yeah. And I was curious, I know you're asking me the questions, but I was curious as to what kind of what you do. How did you start this podcast? And I don't even know if you often get the questions thrown back at you, but I'm very curious to know as well, because I could probably learn something, or it's super interesting too. And I see you have a stack of books behind you, so I know you're probably into learning a lot of different things, and having different conversations with people as to how you could learn too from different people. And yeah, I'm curious to know how you started your own podcast, or how everything works on your end.
Yeah, well, this is kind of new for us. So we have come from the influencer marketing space. So for the last 10 years, basically, we have a technology platform that's called Scrunch, and we connect influencers to brands. But in the
Mm.
last 12 months, I've kind of seen the whole world change. So we're not calling them influencers or bloggers anymore. Now we're calling them creators. And I've just been obsessed with business for a long time. I started an e-commerce brand and sold that. I've got another coaching
Oh, wow.
business where I help female founders with their sales and marketing. And I was kind of looking at Scrunch this year and thinking about how it had to change and adapt to the new creator economy that we're calling it. And I kind of realized that I could apply everything that we've learned for the last decade in business and actually help creators start their own businesses, and also
Mm.
tell the stories of, creators, brands, agencies, people that have built companies that are supporting creators. So yeah, this podcast has evolved firstly just to tell those stories. And I'm just finding the more and more I talk to different people, the more it's sort of moving towards, this idea of a creator becoming a CEO or, starting their own
Yeah.
business. So that's kind of how we're sort of morphing and adapting as well, which is super
That's
exciting.
amazing.
It's really cool, actually.
Wow,
I
that's
love
so
it.
cool.
Mm.
Yeah.
No, it's so good.
And do you find that these like talks and conversations in terms of the podcast, do you find that it's a good tool to do on your end, in terms of just learning to get different angles as to, probably not ways that you could improve, but just get more insight as to to throw back into your end in terms of like Scrunch and everything that you're doing? Is there also that angle of the podcast in terms of the learning aspect?
Oh, absolutely. And it's so interesting because every person has a different experience and story, but also a gap and challenge in terms of where they're trying to go next. So that really helps us kind of identify what tools we need to develop to support our community. So yeah,
Smart.
absolutely. It's like fun research. I get to sit here with a cup of coffee
Yeah.
and just like hear
Well,
about
that's
people's
why.
awesome lives. But yeah, I mean, it's the way we research as well. And so, and
Nice.
obviously it helps us, but when we put out that podcast, somebody else is listening to your story and going, oh my God, I could start my own business. I've got the tools and the means. And
100%.
so it also serves as just inspiring people in the community as well.
Yeah, I agree. What are your 3 recommendations of books
Oh my God, I
from
need to have
since
a
I'm
better
looking at that stack since before?
I need to have a good answer to this question because you're not the first person that's asked me. But my favorites are The 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. That was the first book that made me discover online business because I grew up in a really
Really?
traditional family, like went to uni, got a full-time job. I didn't even know you could start a business when I started my business. So that
Wow.
was super inspirational. I love Atomic Habits by James Clear because it's just super good. Like it breaks everything down and it kind of goes, you know what, I know you have these big dreams, but you only have to like bite off these tiny little steps and tiny habits to get there, which I love.
Mhm.
And then the other one is, I think it's something like The Buddha and the Badass. It's by the guy
Huh.
who started Mind Valley, which is like an online learning platform. And it marries these ideas of being Zen and, mindful and the hustle of actually running a business. So it's
Oh, wow.
it's really cool. So they're probably my top 3
Hmm.
at the moment, I think.
Nice. Yeah. There's probably so many to choose from too to break it
And
down
there's so
into
many I
3,
haven't
but
actually read as well. I haven't read all of them. That's my disclaimer.
good, good. Well, I like the honesty. That's good
Yeah.
at least.
Oh,
Nice.
so good. So good. Well, look, I
Cool.
think we're getting almost to time. So why don't we wrap up with one last question? If you could give, say, a new creator, so somebody that was just starting out, one piece of advice, what would that be?
So a digital creator so the advice I would give, or one piece of advice, or the best piece of advice that I could give for a creator that's just starting off or wanting to start off, or maybe that already started but just wants to level up in their field or game.
Yeah.
So honestly, the best, or not the best, but my best way of answering this is I still even have these conversations too now with my girlfriend and everything. It's an ongoing thing, but the best
Mm-hmm.
piece of advice, we're our biggest like critics and judge. So um, that'll always stay. So the best piece of advice, and it's crazy because we were just talking about this like kind of before or recently, is just post no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
That's number one. Just post. Stay super authentic as to what you're doing. Um, it doesn't matter if you have an iPhone, a camera, a camcorder, a video camera, a flip phone from year 2000. It does not matter.
Yeah.
Because and the reason why I'm saying that is because so many of my videos that I posted, whether it was on TikTok that got over 5 million views, whether it was a YouTube video that got over 1 million views, or whether it was 1 million views on a reel, it all came from a phone.
Mm.
And that made me realize so much. I was like, you just got to post.
Yeah.
And you don't know which one. You can't just be like, you can't be like, oh, I'm going to focus on creating something so good because it's going to blow up, because it
Mm.
doesn't work like that. You just have to post what you're doing on a daily basis, post what you want to share, and just that's how you're going to stay true to what you're posting. And try to never sell either. If you're looking to build a personal brand or an image in terms of like being a creator, and not so much like, if you're wanting to just build an e-commerce business and brand, or a clothing brand that doesn't have your name on it, then that's a whole different ball game. But if you're looking to build your name, Joey Hornyak, as a personal brand and as an image, don't sell. Just
Yes.
post,
Yes.
because people are going to come to you. They're going to ask you how, you got in shape. How can I get shape? Is someone reaching out to you to be on their podcast?
Mm,
I didn't reach it. I'm not reaching out to you to ask if I could be on your podcast. I'm not selling to, I'm not
mm,
here selling all the time. Obviously now it's a different point after 10 years, but um, don't sell. Just post, just post, just post.
yes.
And who cares about the amount of followers you have? Because the reason why I say that, and I always will give this example, and I know this is probably a huge answer that I'm giving as to your question,
No, it's so
but
good.
the the followers can get really into someone's head, and this example that I'm going to give is one that I always try to give to someone that asks me this question is, for example, if you have someone that has 1 million followers on Instagram or any type of platform, and they're posting selfies on every single post, and then you have this person, person B, that has, I don't know, 10,000 followers or 100,000 followers or less, pick what number you want, and that posts these high quality photography, artistic, creative posts or pictures. And I was Nike or any big brand, I'm saying a
Mm,
sports brand because I'm in that field, and Nike sees person A that has 1 million followers that just posts selfies every day or every post, and then you have person B that has 100,000 followers or less that posts these creative pictures. If I'm the person managing Nike and I'm looking for someone to market my new product for a campaign, I'm going to choose person B because
yeah.
he's able or she's able to sell my product better. They have a
Mhm.
better image. And being a person at Nike, I know that the ROI of that person B will be a much better and bigger return than
Mm,
person A. Even if person A has 10 times the amount of followers, 10 times the amount of likes, Nike is going to reach out to person B. And I'd be surprised if they choose person A, meaning the person with 1 million followers that just posts selfies all day. If you have obviously, 1 million followers with a very good reach, but you also post creative pictures and posts, then that's a thumbs
even
up, but
better.
that's a
Mm,
different thing. Yes, even better.
mm,
But just so that someone could understand that's starting off or that's thinking like, oh my God, I got to grow my following or likes and everything, always think of that example. And I've always thought of that example. And um, yeah, I don't even have 1 million followers, and I remember being at 75, 50,000 followers and still landing these big contracts
mm.
because of time that I put, or effort that I put into creating a certain post or image or whatever, whether it came through a phone or camera. um yeah, it, I always stick to that thought. So those are that's kind of like my summary, so to speak, as to kind of the tip or tips that I would give for someone just starting off or that wants to begin or that just wants to level up their game and get a better understanding, moving forward. And I'm not saying I'm the best at this, but I do have some experience. And whether or not you're watching or listening to this, take what you want, use what you want, and you know yeah, you use something from this person, use something from this person, and then make it your own, and just be active on social media. And one other thing before wrapping up is, um, don't always stay grounded too.
Mm,
Respond to people who have 500 followers, who don't put yourself on a pedestal too much and think like you're all it, or all of that stuff. I have 7 rules that I follow. This links back to the angel that dropped from the sky. That person had wrote to me 7 rules of life in that email that I found out who that was. And I took those 7 rules of life, I wrote them down, I framed it, and as like one of the rules in those 7 is to stay grounded
mm.
and to always remember where kind of you came from and everything like that, no matter how much money you're going to end up having or all the materialistic stuff that you have or the amount of followers, again, is to just always stay grounded. And I think that goes a long ways.
Incredible. You are absolutely awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your stories and your insights and your tips with the Scrunch community. We couldn't be more grateful to have you on the show. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.